Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we teach singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I am your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful, lovely co-host, Michelle Larkin. Michelle, say hi to the people.
What's up, world? How you doing tonight? We is working hard to make this happen. Let me just say,
oh my goodness,
we are committed to the cause.
Yes, most certainly. We missed you all last week. I'm a pretty private person, but I'll share. I had a death in the family and was preparing for the funeral all last week. I definitely missed you all, but God, family business, and that's why I wasn't here. So was focused on assisting with the burial of my brother, to be quite frank, and very close brother. He and I are very close. So put my brother to rest, and I don't want to be here and not be focused and give you all my undivided attention. But it was a lot of things that some people ask me, how do I come up with the topics? And I really I'm sensitive to what's going on around me, and it kind of moves me to conclude as to what I need to speak about. Yes, Anthony, God, family business. That's how I make all of my decisions. Every decision is prioritized by God, family business. So I always put that first. So this would be business, or in this case, ministry to me, which is even under business. And I'm blessed to have my business as ministry. But again, that still puts it as third place. So in order for me to even be effective at what it is that I'm doing, I do have to put my priorities in that order, because God is love, and having him first allows for me to love my family properly, which in turn allows me to share the love with you all effectively. So the way that I come up with these topics is, if you all request it, I definitely make sure that I dive in or go more in depth in comments that you all share, which is why it's imperative or important that you all share your comments. It helps me to know what we need to go in a little further on. But this topic, I'm kind of glad that it touched my spirit to where I needed to go in on it, because we had to have laid the proper foundation for this to be received correctly. So if you are new to No Love Podcast, and this is maybe your first episode, I highly recommend you listen to all of the episodes prior to it to very clearly understand what love actually is. And with that, I'll share, because I know Michelle's like, what in the world is the topic going to be at this point with all of this rambling that I'm doing, and kind of
it's just foreshadowing. It's laying a foundation. It's making sure we come fully engaged and present. I respect your effort.
Most certainly. So the title of today's topic is "Don't Like Your Harvest? Change Your Seed." I'll say that again.
You better preach.
I'll say that again. The topic of discussion tonight is "Don't Like Your Harvest? Change Your Seed." Now, the reason why I set the foundation of understanding what love is because you can change your seed and not reap the harvest if the place that you're coming from is not from a loving place. So it's necessary that you come to this topic from a place of genuine and love. #9love, meaning truth. For those, again, who are new, whenever we have an aha moment or we have this learned experience, we type in #9 and then share what it is that we learn. The number 9 is the number of truth, and truth is something that no matter the situation or circumstance, it always is, which is why hashtag 9 is important, because 9 is the number of truth. If you take the number 9 and multiply it by any number, the sum total of the answer in its simplest form will always go back to 9. So if you do 9 times 2, that is 18. The sum of 18 is 1 plus 8, that's 9. 9 times 3 is 27. If you do 2 plus 7, that's 9. 9 times 99, 9 plus 9, 18. 1 plus 8, 9. You can never escape 9, which means you can never escape truth, which is why whenever we have an aha or profound moment, we use the hashtag 9. So if you're new to the live and you see someone put hashtag 9 and you're wondering what that is, or if I ever respond to your post and I put hashtag 9, all I'm saying is what you shared is truth, or amen, or I affirm that, or that is valid information. So enough with all of the foundational stuff. Back to the topic at hand. The topic at hand, again, is called Don't Like Your Harvest, Change Your Seed. Now, as I stated, what things happen to me that causes me to say, you know what, I need to kind of dive in on this. And because I typically just do things based off of the core of me, I typically don't really analyze why it works out that way. But because I kept getting these experiences, it forced me to troubleshoot love or my responses and break this down to where we went to this topic. So what I mean by that is I get random compliments that, to me, it bothers me that I get them because I think they should be the norm. But I also,
you can't see the world as yourself, sir.
But I also notice that if they are surprised by it or feel that it's great, then it clearly is not the norm. So I get compliments like, well, your children are very, very mannerable, or respectful. And
I'm like, sir. It's not the norm.
Or your wife, she, like, you asked her to do something, she ain't give you any like lip or whatever. Like, she actually acted like she wanted to do that for you, like when you asked her to do it, or the way that you two get along, or the way that you interact is like all of these compliments that I get. It's like, well, that's the norm. But at the same token, again, I have to investigate that and say, well, why is that the norm for me, but it's not for everyone else? So that's why I went into Don't Like Your Harvest, Change Your Seed, because typically if someone is complimenting you on something, they're probably experiencing the opposite and wondering why. And even the way that they say it, it kind of implies like, well, I wish I had that. Because it's like they're complimenting me about my children, but you have children. Complimenting me about my spouse, but you have a spouse, or you have a mate, or you have whatever. So the concept of today is to, for one, share how it's always interesting, because as I ask questions to follow up, I investigate why they're not experiencing it. And I realize, as I share with my daughter, is a lot of people want to do what your daddy does, but they don't want to do what your daddy does. And what I mean by that is they want to have my experiences, but they don't want to put in the work that I put in to get my experiences. So, for example, you know, my children being respectful or mannerable, it's from me respecting and serving and being mannerable towards them. So
can I just ask, when you say you're getting compliments and you're talking about harvest and seed, would you say that what people are commenting on is the harvest, right? So they are seeing the fruit in its fully developed form, or
that's exactly right,
in its budding space. So, like you're saying, they haven't seen the tilling of the ground, the selection of the seed, but they can comment on and see and benefit from and even taste, right? Like the experience, because I having myself having had the privilege to spend time with your family, I think it does trigger thoughts of comparison or reflection, because not necessarily that I didn't have it, but what is it about this that I haven't experienced before. So maybe that I had a loving family, but maybe I didn't have the tone, and the unity wasn't there. So I think being in close proximity to a something that you like or fruit that you have um, desire for does make you recognize either missing having it, because like if you want it, that means you don't have it, or comparison to, if this is an apple and I typically eat bananas, then how come I didn't know that there was an apple? So
Yeah.
I do, I definitely can see where we who aren't haven't experienced the same thing, it's definitely we're seeing the harvest, and I hope that you go into where whether that was intentional or whether you're as surprised by the harvest as the rest of us are.
That's a wonderful question, and that's exactly what I mean by. Well, first, what I'm going to teach today is going to take practice. But as time goes by, that practice becomes habit and becomes who you are, true to form. So when I say I had to step back and kind of investigate it, I did have to research why it is that I'm getting the results that I'm getting, without me necessarily being intentional about it. I had to step back and analyze myself and then say, well, that is the fruit of this type of seed that I'm planting on a consistent basis, because that is who I am at my core now. I haven't always been that way.
It's not even that you're planting new seeds. Again, you're growing a family, right? So you have some core elements, some core resources. But what I do see is cultivation.
Oh, I promise you, we're going through all of that's all going to be broken down at 3 points.
Yeah, you better preach though. You better preach.
I got 3 points. So as I stated, because be mindful a lot, and I've stated this to my daughter because I always am intentional about her being intentional about practicing or preparing herself for success in her respective areas of whatever it is that she's doing, whether it's miming, writing, violin, whatever my daughter is doing. She's always doing something. I'm always making sure that she's intentional about her preparation and her seed planting and the habits that she's forming. So as I tell her that, people want to do what I do, but they don't want to do what I do. And when I share or I ask or when I get to the bottom of it, it's phenomenal to me how people don't realize that they're contributors to their experiences. And that's why I kind of want to put the mirror up so that you can kind of see like what I mean by that. So I've had people say, wow, your wife did that or she serves you, but she does it with such happiness or whatever. And I can't remember a time where I've asked my children or my wife to do me a favor or do something for me, and they had a problem with doing it. But at the same token, I literally serve my family intentionally all the time. So for me to ask to be served, they're like, oh my goodness, they're happy to do it because they're thinking about how it is that I serve them. So I have a lot of people that want to be served, but they don't want to serve. So your seed is to not serve, which is going to cause someone that you even ask or imply that you want to be served to not want to serve you, or they're going to do it with the attitude or out of obligation. Go ahead, share.
So would you say that your willingness to serve has resulted in not having an entitled spirit? Like, I think you're easily served because people don't feel like they're entitled to it. You don't come into the game saying you have to, or you should, or I deserve. You're serving from a space of, I have no problem giving to you.
But I personally feel that I was created to serve. I'm a servant.
That's a huge point.
I'm a servant leader.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, and it bothers me to no end because I've even been in church or whatever, and I'm doing something. I might be cleaning up after an event or putting up chairs, and people will say to me that have their positions. Why are you doing that? That is the sexton's job. Why can't I clean up? Like, it's dirty. Or these chairs have to be stacked. These tables need to be broken down. I'm an able-bodied person. I see that what's about to happen or needs to happen. Why not just do it? But the same thing goes. The same person that tells me, why am I doing it? It's the sexton's job. I see them arguing with the sexton when he needs or wants for the sexton to do something for him, for an event. But as soon as I come into the picture and I ask the sexton to do something for me, they're like, oh, Brother Eddie, of course, I'll get that for you. Just tell me where and when. And they're anxious to help me. They want to do stuff for me. And I'm not doing that, as I stated. It's there. Why not help the person clean up if you see that it's dirty, whether it's your job or not? But on the flip side, when I ask for assistance, they gladly assist me because they want to do for me as I have done for them. That was the seed that I planted. It wasn't necessarily intentional. It was the core of who I am, but it actually caused a harvest of so many other people who want to serve me back.
That's the law of reciprocity.
This is true.
That is the law of reciprocity. If you give, it will be given back to you. And it doesn't have to always come from the person that you gave it to. But that it takes a level of trust in that law to not look for reciprocation from the person you're giving to. I think we have misnomer is that it's a tit for tat. It's a one for one. And it doesn't have to be, because, even in grace, like when you in grace, like you can plant one seed and get a tree that gives you back, 1,000 seeds. So when we give, it's not just to get. It's not just to get in that second. Like it's a lot. Reciprocity is an abundant space to be in.
That's what I mean, and that's why it's so dangerous to share laws, because then it moves from love to manipulation. Now, clearly, I guess
what I mean is more like gravity. I don't mean
I get it. I understand the law is, as we're using the analogy that you plant a seed, you gain a harvest. That is the law. There's no, you can't get past that. But when the law is done from a beneficial standpoint, where you're trying to, that's when it shifts. As I stated, I clean because because the core of me says there's something dirty and it clearly needs to be clean. Why not do it? It happened that when I needed assistance with cleaning up, people want to do it for me because of how I've done it for them. I didn't think about, oh my gosh, in the near future, I'm going to need you to clean. I saw that you needed assistance, or that it was an opportunity for me to assist.
That's how I got all my jobs. I ain't lying. I do not apply. I do not apply for positions. And every unemployment scenario that I have been through, it has been because I have helped people without any expectation that when an opening came, they were like, oh, Michelle would be great for this. Because, and I do believe it was coming from a giving space. It wasn't, they can trust that I'm there because I want to be. I'm going to give to you without any restriction of job description. Like you're saying, it's like, I'm not going to just check this box because this is the box. I'm going to give because I have the gift and I want to give it to the value to this event.
And that's why I stressed at the beginning, before I even go into this, please listen to the other parts of this show, because I don't want this to be something that you conclude is let's manipulate people. I want you to get to a place where you love people, to where you serve people, which in turn will yield you fruit in the future. And Christina Speller, she said that's a good point. Reciprocity is not always from who you gave to. That is so true. And the irony in that is, I've had so many people that helped me from who I helped that they knew. Right? I didn't even know that they were connected at all, but because of how they spoke so highly of me, just because of their connection to them, they wanted to help me. But again, if you are being intentional, which typically, if it's not from a loving place, it does not come off as loving, and it's all you can tell that it was done from an actual a motive that wasn't genuine and sincere.
This type of giving that you're talking about doesn't come through a straw. It comes through from an abundant space. You don't drip it out. This type of giving doesn't drip.
It comes from the space of where we're trying to end up in this no love journey. So as we, first and foremost, if you're new to this, love is not a two-way street. And that's such a misconception of it. And that's why people use it in a manipulative way. Love is a one-way street. It's giving and giving and giving, but when it's done with the right person, they're giving too, so it seems like it's give and take. That's not the case. Love is just give, and giving without any expectations of receiving anything back. That is what love is. Anything else is just manipulation. I'm giving because I expect you to do something back. That's not love. That is manipulation, and that's what causes your frustration when you don't get back what you in your mind did the gesture for. So Christina said, she said, yes, your heart posture when you give makes a difference. All right, so let's get into these points. All right, so first and foremost, I had to stress the foundation of you coming at this from a loving space. And if you don't really understand that, I don't have the time to break that down. So please listen to the shows prior to so that you can understand that, as Christina so eloquently stated, your heart posture is correct when you receive the information that we're sharing in this particular subject, okay, or title or topic, okay? So the first and foremost, your seed determines your harvest. So your life is a reflection of your core belief. And that's why it's imperative that you come from a heart posture of love, because if your heart posture is manipulation, with everything that I'm teaching, you're going to have people responding or reaping what you sow in a manipulative way. So even if you've done it, when people do it back to you, it's going to come from the same type of energy that you've planted in reference to your seed. So if you want respect, as I've shared so many other ways, which is why this journey is so important and how these actual topics could never run out, because you have to look at it for you to really get it in so many different ways so that you grasp the concept of what love in these particular topics mean or are. So when you are coming from a place of manipulation, or your seed is planted with the expectation of a return, but it has nothing to do. Go ahead.
Would you call that place selfish?
Most certainly. It's definitely a selfish place. Manipulation is selfish. Manipulation is selfish. It's so that you can get. But as I stated earlier, the only way that you can receive is to first do or first be, which is the implication of processing or planting a seed. And it's deeper than you physically receiving. It's even you being able to receive when it's done, because you don't necessarily trust that something can be done to you unless you trust that it can be done, which typically doesn't happen until you do it. so you're not going to
trust doesn't require proof. Trust is giving, like you said, without expectation, and trusting that it doesn't have to be about you. You don't have to take care of yourself. It's just an interesting dynamic.
That's why love is so important to understand. Because when you're doing stuff out of love, you have no expectations, but those who you're responding to in love, just that in itself causes them to come in and actually love on you back, because they sense that genuineness and they just want to reciprocate. Love just it consumes you, and it forces you to. That's why it says love conquers all. And I've had
fear blocks all. So if you love conquers all, fear is that block. And if you can ever trust that in giving, receiving is just a natural byproduct. You don't have to make the gift. You don't have to make the receiving happen. You just have to be.
But check it. Think about what you just said. You said giving allows for you to receive. The only way that you can receive is if you give. If you are holding on, you have no ability to receive. So the only way that you can receive is to let something go. You feel what I'm saying? So for those who are listening audibly through your podcast, I'm literally holding something in my hand. If I'm holding something in my hand, unless I give it up, I cannot receive anything else because my hands are preoccupied. So the only way that you can receive is to give. So the only way that you can receive a harvest is to give your seed.
Amen.
So in order for you to change your harvest, you have to change your seed. And there's so many people that are frustrated about their harvest, their life, their relationship, their selves, yet they won't change their seed, what it is that they're giving out. If you don't like how people are treating you, for one, you might want to start working on treating yourself better. And, which is why the foundation of the triangle is self-interest, and to learn how to love yourself and get to a place where it does not take for someone else to be with you in order for you to feel loved. And then from there, you will be able to adequately love that other person. They'll be able to receive that correctly. And in turn, you will choose the proper mate because you love yourself enough to make a choice that is not going to be any less than you maintaining the love that you already have for yourself. Go ahead, Michelle.
I want to just caveat that with having experienced it a couple of different times in a couple of different scenarios. There is healing in that exchange, because holding on really tight, just imagine holding on really tight tends to put grooves in your hand. If you're holding on to something, it tends to tense things up. There is something very healing about opening it up and letting the blood flow. And like, so if you're tense, you're and you start to feel that, numbness. When you open up, the blood starts to flow, and it is a very healing experience. And and it looks different. Like, there's no target. It looks different in the many different ways that we express love. There's love in friendship. There's love in romantic relationships. There's love in loving yourself. There's just a lot of, and each of those has their own healing experience. Yeah. It's an amazing experience.
And it's crazy because I know so many people, especially with this whole funeral that just happened. People's concept of love is so distorted. And you have the right hand up. They're trying to control, and love there's nothing controlling about love. Love is liberating.
It's very
exactly.
But we live like this. Like, I gotta hold it, I gotta control it, I gotta have it.
Which is even more confirmation that you may not feel that you are valued enough to be loved, because you're trying to hold on to all of these emotions or feelings out of fear that you'll never get more of them. So you're trying to hold on to that, and you can't let that person go because of your fear that they just don't really want you, because you don't feel loved enough to be wanted. So when you're trying to hold on to something or someone, that's you questioning your value or the validity of yourself, which is also an implication that you don't love yourself, or that you don't feel valuable enough that someone else can love you.
100%. It's a direct correlation to your trust level. Your need to control and hold on is directly related to how much trust you have. Because why are you holding on to something that you trust?
Yeah.
Why do I don't have to see you every 30 seconds if I trust you. I don't have to ask you what you're doing every 30 seconds if I trust you. But if I have to monitor, control, manage, fear, then what are you trusting?
Yeah.
What are you trusting? You're trying to define love, make love, give it to yourself, and then measure whether or not you have it. Like, you're controlling the entire equation. Like, that is not love. That is you trying to create some experience for yourself and then call it love.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So my questions to you from a seed planning standpoint is, if you want respect in your relationship, are you the one giving respect? If you want to be served, are you serving? If you want to be spoken to in a more pleasant manner, are you speaking pleasantly to those who you're encountering? If you want someone to, I just had a meeting whereby I was talking and sharing, and the person was like, well, I'm only human. I'm only going to take but so much. What do you expect me to do? And I'm like, well, giving the opposite of what you would prefer as a response is never going to get you the response that you want.
You have to repeat that. Repeat.
So I said, well, giving the opposite response of what you want would never get you the response that you're looking for. So if you're inconsistent, which we're headed to that, in your responses, you're giving mixed signals, which is giving you mixed harvest, and you'll never get consistent harvest at all. So let's move to point number 2, because first point is seed determines the harvest. So if you want something, you have to first be that something, which in turn is you planting seeds that allow for people to see how to treat you. You're physically becoming the seed and the harvest that you want for your life. And the sad thing, or the sad truth is, people are upset with how people are treating them, which in actuality is just how upset they are with themselves. Because all they're doing is teaching other people, either by not cutting them off when they treat them with disrespect, or allowing them to maintain their company, or with the way that they're treating them. All you're doing is mirroring how you feel about yourself by allowing that type of thing to happen. So all you're doing is you are being the seed that actually assists in the harvest that you're experiencing. Because when you get to a place where you love yourself, you will not tolerate any trash or crap like that at all. So seed determines the harvest, and your life is a reflection of your belief, of your core belief. So you have to really start working on how you see and value yourself, so that you can shift your actual situation or harvest, from an analogy standpoint that we're talking about. Second, we've kind of alluded to it, is your core determines the cultivation of the harvest. Your core determines the cultivation of the harvest. So, as I stated earlier, if you're coming from a manipulative place, people can sense what it is that you're doing. I've used this example before. If my wife comes home to a well-cooked meal, 2 dozens of roses, 3 or 4 cards sitting on the countertop, and after she comes in and she said, "Oh, my baby, he loves me. Look at all that he's done," and I ended with, "Now you know you need to take care of me tonight, right?" That ruined every single thing that I had done up until that trifling statement that I made after. But it showed the core of what my intent was behind the seeds, the quote unquote seeds that I planted. So yeah, I may have done the right thing, but it was for the wrong reason, which ruined everything that I had done. You think she's going to receive me, if she even gives me some that night, the way that she would have received me if she just did that freely out of appreciation or gratitude? No, it's not going to work out that way. So if your core is jacked up, even your seeds are just going to be bad seeds. And it's going to still equate to a bad harvest. I see you thinking. What you thinking? Share, Michelle.
I'm going specifically to your example. If I come to that experience, having in the past experienced someone only giving me gifts to do penance, or to, grease the, set me up for something. So how do I, for my listener, and I acknowledge through this conversation that my current seeds may be bad, where do I get the new seeds?
you get the new seeds from your core. First, dating yourself. You have to figure out, why do I feel this way? Why are my thought process now? Your response may not be as open or flamboyant, but if you are doing things like taking a woman out or cooking for your man or doing whatever you're doing with expectations behind it, it's the same thing as what I just gave an example of. And it's actually and if you have a hard time gauging as to whether you have that, if you ever do something for your wife or for your partner or for your mate or whatever you call them, and they don't respond and you get upset at how they didn't respond, that is a clear indication that your actions were not just gestures of love or gratitude, and it warrants you to investigate your core to figure out what kind of seeds. So first, in order for you to change your seeds, you have to be honest about the seeds that you're planting, which means you have to be honest with yourself. You have to investigate yourself. So why did I get upset that she didn't do anything? I took her out and she didn't give me none, or I cooked and he didn't do the hedges like I asked him to do. Whatever it is that you did from a manipulative standpoint that didn't get you results and got you frustrated, you have to first identify that, okay, my seed planting is not with the intent of just loving this person. It's solely from a place of manipulation, which in turn is causing your frustration based off the harvest or lack thereof that you're getting. So that's what I mean by your core determines the cultivation. So if you're not coming at this with a place of love, this whole process is going to frustrate you. Because, and I'll tell you why on the third point, but you're not going to be getting response, and you're going to be, see, I told you, I did this, she did this, or didn't do this, this jump don't work. It doesn't work. I tried to do that. That's what people typically, I'm telling you, I've done that. I went, I did such and such, I did this, and she did this. I told you, it doesn't work. She's not like that. That's not how it works. Oh, okay. Well, first and foremost, the fact that you're doing that and you have a list of things that you've done says that you're doing it with the intent of getting a response, first and foremost, which is always an evidence of not coming from a loving place. I have so many people that have a list of the things that they've done for their men or their women, and I'm like,
keeping score, then you are not coming from a loving.
Exactly. If you can quickly pull up, I can't think of all the things that I do or have done for my wife to where I did this. Like I'm intentionally doing so much because I love her that I'm not, like you said, keeping score or saying, well, dang, I did all that. The least he could do. I hear that a lot. The least she could do is, do you know how much I spent for her Christmas gift and all she got me was? Like, these are the conversations that I have to where I'm like, okay, well, did you do that because you love him or her? Or did you do that because, okay, now that I did this, I expect this? And that is what would keep you frustrated. And that is evidence that your seed is a bad seed because it's not a seed of love. But go ahead, Michelle. I see your hand up.
To piggyback on your point, if you're not keeping score, it also informs how you disagree with each other. So going back to your very first point, where when you ask people in your family to do things for you, they don't typically resist, right? Because you've primed the pump, so to speak, with all of this giving without any expectation. So similarly, if your core is determines your cultivation, then if your core, as you're constantly reflecting, which is what you're asking us to do, which is to step back and pause a little bit and find out why, that loving space also will change how you argue with somebody or disagree with somebody. Because if you're not keeping score and you're not trying to get something in return, you're not coming from manipulative space, then it's easier to assume good intent and you're not trying to win the argument, right? So it's about resolution. But
exactly.
I'm connecting two different conversations together, but they're all connected to the triangle.
They're all connected. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because there was a show that I had done, we had done about how people get over cheating. Remember that? How couples get over cheating. And one of the things I was saying, well, if you find evidence that they're cheating, don't keep on researching to get more evidence. You've already concluded that he or she cheated. Now it's time to work on how you all are going to move past that, or if you want to move past that. But people typically, the only reason why they want more evidence is so that they can bring that to the argument to use for their advantage later, which again is not a place of love, nor is it going to help. And then you went to the skeezer's apartment, and then I see you bought her boots. Then I see like all you're doing is adding stuff that you can present in your argument, which is going to make it worse. So you need to just conclude that, okay, this person cheated, find out why. If you need to know the process of that, please listen to the show. I don't have time to go through it, but you brought up arguments, which caused me to go to that thought process, and how I never got the ability to go, because I was saying there's nothing good about continuing to go through the email or text message to get more information. There's nothing. Some people say, I need to know. You need to know for bad reasons, I promise you. There's nothing good about learning that he or she had done all of these extravagant things with another person. There's no benefit to it whatsoever. So I shared that, but at the same token, you brought up a great point, which is where I was leading to, which is when it's time for correction, because of your core, it makes it easier for them to receive it because they're considering how you've been throughout the process. They're considering who you are in the process. So when it's time for correction or shifting or sharing how they have an opportunity for adjustments, the pushback is so much lighter because you haven't given them ammunition, i.e. that long list that you're trying to, well, what about this that I did? What about that I did? Because I can assure you, if you have that kind of relationship, and because, as I stated, you typically are creating the kind of harvest. So if you're doing that, more than likely they're doing that because you clearly have brought that to their attention multiple times. So now you've taught them that I need to make sure that my scorebooks are correct. So now they're going to reciprocate your list with the list that you've caused them to learn how to create. And it's going to be a whole bunch of back and forth, which prevents a solution from being had, because you're not just going there with trying to resolve an issue to make sure that the love that you all have is being maintained or cultivated. You're just going there.
So that goes to your keeping it open, right? So that goes to your objective is always to be able to keep your ability to give open, like just not hold on to things and hold on to issues or to tighten up or to close off, because that is a natural barrier to growth for the harvest. If you plug up the pipe, nothing comes out.
Yeah, most certainly. Of course. Yeah. So that, I mean, that, like, your core is this is the water. This is the getting the dirt and everything that is necessary for this seed that you have planted to harvest into something big and huge that you can rest in.
Stones out of the ground, right? So seeds are very difficult to grow in spaces where the roots can't grow down deep. And so I think what we're talking about by doing the reflection and figuring out what your motives are and where you're coming from is picking out the stones and getting back to a really good, clean soil that can be the root of a good core of foundation, so you can grow deep, so you can give out. Like, when your roots are deep, you are stronger and able to bear more fruit and have better harvests.
That's right. So, in this, from an analogy or metaphoric standpoint, you are the seed. Your actions are the seed, but the words that follow your actions, like I said, now you know you need to take care of me later. How you respond to your actions when people question your actions, because it's coming from a loving place, it helps cultivate that this person, that I took that the wrong way, but now that he or she explained why it was done that way, it makes me feel more comfortable, and it allows for me to let my guard down a little bit more, because that place that you're coming from, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. You're starting to speak and you're responding to where they're like, wow, he just loves me. She just loves me. That action was not, it came from a place, I've had that experience from someone that took advantage of me, but the way he interacts with doing that same thing, it feels differently. It feels total opposite from what I've experienced.
Talking about. That's the healing I was talking about.
Oh yeah, that is definitely.
That is healing.
Exactly. But when it comes from a loving place, it's difficult to receive when you've been in hateful situations. So it looks the same, and that's how we get deceived and prevent ourselves from actually experiencing love, because we're seeing the same things, but we're not seeing the same thing.
We're not receiving it. We can't receive it because we're like this. We got our dukes up.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have protected ourselves from getting love in.
Most certainly. So your actions are the seed planting. Your core, it follows the actions with your words and your consistency and how you respond when what you're doing is questioned. That shows the core of who you are in your response, which allows for that seed to actually to produce and begin to sprout and germinate and come up and become what it's ultimately been planted to be, which is why my wife does not say, dang, babe, I gotta go and iron or whatever you need me to do. I don't get that. My children, they just don't do that. And that's how I speak to them. If anyone has ever seen me, I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, to my children. My daughter's 12, my baby boy is 6, my oldest is 20. When I respond to them, it's yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, for a couple reasons. One, I don't want them to be surprised when they finally get respect as an adult. I want them to expect respect and be trained into expecting to be respected, as well as see how you respect others by my actions, so that because that is their norm in their environment, they will take that norm out into the public and where they're at, and that will cause them to interact with people the same way that they see. Your children and even your spouse and your friends, they do not respond to you by what you tell them. They respond to you by how you act around them. So that's how they learn from you. They don't learn from what it is that you're saying. You can talk to your kids all day long, and if you're telling them to do stuff that you don't do, in their mind, they're saying, you telling me to clean your room when your room is trash. You telling me to pick up behind myself when you don't pick up behind yourself. You're asking me to serve you, your wife or your husband, when you don't even serve me. Or all you do is go and serve your pastor or community or organization, but when you get home, you don't have any energy for us. These are the things that they're saying in their minds, but you want a different harvest from what it is that you're planting as far as your seed. Go ahead, Michelle.
I think that part of getting the wrong harvest is not being clear about what you planted. If you can't plant, apple seed and expect pineapple. But if you're not clear, you're going, I planted a seed, so I should like what's coming up, but you're not even involved in really being clear about what you want. And therefore your expectations aren't met.
It's funny you say that because, and this is why I love you being on the show, because it forces me to dive into things that I said that in my mind, I kind of conclude it's already received. But if you notice, I stated earlier that when they question what you do, your response helps them to know that it's coming from a loving place. Though I do things without thinking about it because it's my core, it has loving intent behind it. So when I'm questioned, I'm able to articulate why I did it. And like you just stated, if you don't understand your seed or the seed that you're planting or understand the seed that you want, then you are just doing things haphazardly and you don't have intentional plan. Just like we started the show, I said God, family, business. I'm intentional about every single thing that I do. I get compliments. Me and you had kind of a side conversation because the first week of school, the teacher called and said how she found out that my son was a good reader. And I'm like,
Duh.
I don't even know if that's a compliment. But okay. My son is 6. He's been reading for years, and we read with him on a continuous, not actually, like, he loves YouTube, and the way that I got him reading was, what you can't spell, you can't watch. And he wanted to watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. So I made him learn how to read. I found things that he liked, and I structured our environment to where it made him want to read so he can accomplish his goals. That's me indirectly setting my children up to accomplish the goals that they want in life.
That's the seeds with intention. Those are seeds with intention.
Exactly. And so, which is exactly what I mean. Like, everything that I do, it's intentional. It might not, I might not have strategized at that moment while I did it, but I know in my core what I want for my family and what I want for, like, first time I brought it up, some people were offended that I said my job as a husband and as a father is to make my wife and kids as independent of me as possible. So many people want to feel needed. Remember, we talked about holding on, wanting to feel needed or whatever. But if I love them, they will want me. They won't need me. So they'll want to be around me.
Time out. Rewind. Restate.
If I love them, they won't need me. They'll want me. And it feels much better to be wanted than to be needed.
And isn't it, and it's almost illogical to let go to receive, because that's what you're really doing. It doesn't seem like it should work. So we do the opposite. We hold on so that we can keep instead of letting go so we can receive. And that is a huge difference.
And you know what? And I have evidence of that, because some things that I say come off like I don't care, when it actually is just coming from a place of wisdom. Like, I'm not doing that. Or you didn't buy your wife any Valentine's Day card, or I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, or whatever. But it seems callous and cold to the other person. But my wife, who knows me, she is in a place, like, I sat and watched, and I'm like, that might have sounded kind of rude. Like, I was at a place, and the lady met her who I had been working with for the whole week, who never met my wife, and she said, your husband is a wonderful man. She said, I know. My wife said, I know. Like, you're not telling me anything. I
get this all the time. She's like, I get it all the time. Like, you get it in little doses. Oh wow, I get this all the time.
Life. This is my man, and I don't expect anything less of him and what it is that you all are experiencing. And I remember, so it's just things that my wife says that I love her knowledge and her wisdom of what we have. I remember it was years ago, one of her close friends saw me at a homecoming walking with this other young lady. I forgot where we were walking to. So she contacts my wife. I don't remember if it was it wasn't a text message, because she showed me. She text messaged my wife that I'm walking around campus with another girl or a woman. So homecoming. So I knew the girl, and we were walking, and I remember where we were headed and everything and talking. And my wife's response was, she is around him. She is not with him. She said,
you better go.
She said,
yes, girl.
If we were to go to a concert and you saw me and my husband there and you joined us, you would be around us. But when we leave, I would be with him.
Trust.
So you could see us in an environment, and you could be around us, but you're not with my husband. So I said, oh my gosh, so she was like, but that is the place that she is and where we are. That woman, she's exactly right. She wasn't with me. She was around me. We were walking, we were talking, but with someone is a totally different concept. She said, if I was walking with my husband, I would be with him. She's around him. but she just knows, and that is from the cultivation of love that that allowed for me to have the harvest of the fruit that comes from my wife's mouth about me and our relationship and our circumstances. And
that also speaks to, when I say this, because for people who have not listened to this consistently, there is evolution in achieving this state. You weren't always in this space, but it took cultivation, and you've achieved this space. And that goes to some of your testimony that you shared over time, you know, how you had your own issues and you put up safety nets to prevent certain things from happening. But in that prevention of some of those risks, you also compensated by creating this foundational space of trust and communication and, you know, connection. So that's being said to say, this is not to hold up perfection and say it's this is where you should be, just be there. It's knowing that this is an achievable state and do the work to get there. It's worth it. It's like I said, achievable, and it feels so good. It feels.
Oh my gosh, yes, it does, and that's why I'm glad you're saying this, because that's what I mean by, again, this is why you're so important to the show. I by no means am I perfect. If you listen to the previous shows, you'll see that this has been a journey for me, but I'm confident, and I know for sure that it was my journey because of my gift of teaching to go through, so that I can teach you how to take the journey
100%.
yourself.
And again, as a student, the reason I think I'm good for you in this situation is because I am an illustration of being able to read your journey first, because I read your book before I met you. I read the book, I met you, I worked with you, I have evolved myself and benefited from the lesson. So it wouldn't have been as easy to digest if I couldn't relate and see that you had been through it, and then be able to see it in shoe leather and harvest it right in front of me. So I agree. It is so valuable to be this authentic and share that I'm teaching from a working knowledge, not from just what I believe, is what I know.
And it's a continuous working knowledge. I'm always studying. You all have, this is what I mean by people want to do what I do, but they don't want to do what I do. I'm consistently studying. And as I stated, I had to troubleshoot, like, how did these 3 points came from me having to step back and say, well, why is this norm to me, but it's not normal to them? And I had to troubleshoot myself and what it is that I do, which brings us to the last part, which is probably the most important part, which is why the second part is just as important as the first part. So first, your seed determines your harvest, which is what you do. Then second, your core determines your cultivation, which is imperative, because if you're coming from a place of love, you're doing this in a manner that your responses to them will show that it's coming from a place of love and not manipulation. But it's also imperative to assist with the final portion to receive the harvest, which is your patience determines the receipt of the harvest. Your patience determines the receipt of your harvest, or of the harvest. Now, first and foremost, since we're using the analogy of harvest and seeds, what farmer do you know plants a seed and receives a harvest in the same season that he planted the seed? So this is why people come to me and say, see, I told you, I've done it. I'm telling you, I did it. I did it last week. And her response was such and such, or I did it last week, and his response was, or his response wasn't. So they're planting a seed that they think they're going to get a harvest for in the same season. No, you have to cultivate that seed, which is why coming from a place of love is imperative, because patience will expose your true nature and who you really are and what your response is going to be. This is why in the beginning of relationships, it's always good in the beginning, but as time goes by, you're ultimately going to see that they're cultivating from a horrible place, and their true motive is not who they claim to be. So that patience exposes who you are, which in turn will allow for you to see your harvest to ultimately grow. And that's what I meant by, at this place, I'm not thinking about all the stuff that I'm doing. I'm just doing what I'm doing from a place of love, and it's yielding me the harvest that I'm getting because of the consistency behind my seed and my cultivation, which in turn allows for me to always have someone that wants to do for me, always have multiple persons that are looking out for me instead of just myself. I can't do any of this by myself. None of this by myself. Even you all sitting here listening is beneficial in helping this whole thing. The inboxes that you all send me, all the things that you all, the donations that you all send me, it's crazy how you all bless me from this. And I'm truly grateful that you all are receptive to this, but I can't stress you enough. When you plant a seed, you never receive the harvest of the seed in the same season that you plant a seed, which is why it's imperative that you're coming from a loving place, because that will give you the endurance and the ability to be consistent enough for you to be able to receive the seed. But the good news is that seed, no farmer plants a seed without the expectation of a harvest. That's why they plant the seed. So you should be working on you as the seed, which is the foundation of the actual triangle, which in turn will allow for you to be able to go to the second part of the triangle, which is selflessness, which is you doing stuff out of love because you're not thinking about yourself, which in turn will allow for you to self-evolve, because that person contributing to your life assists in you evolving when you all are going at this the same way. And that will give you the patience and the motivation to keep going, because that person is worth it. If you've chosen that person correctly, based off of you coming from a place of love, they are worth your selflessness and the love that you are cultivating, which in turn will cause them to reciprocate, as you all would like to say, the love that you're pouring into them. But that would just because that would be because they would be inspired to, not because they will feel the need to. Michelle?
Let me tell you why I'm speechless. I'm going to be a little transparent right now, because I am not married. And so sometimes listening to this, it doesn't always apply exactly. And relationship wise, I was in the space where it required the patience that you just alluded to the response. The seed had been planted. So the seed of connection had been planted with this person, but it didn't come up fast enough. It didn't pop through fast enough. I didn't see the fruit fast enough, but the seed had been planted. The patience that it has taken to wait for the seed to grow has turned in on myself. Like, I had to work on me. Like you're saying, I had to check, why am I anxious? Why am I looking for some sort of response? Why can't my feelings be unreturned? And does that have to be a bad thing? Because if I'm coming from a loving place and I care about this person, any time I spend, anything I give, anything I do does not require reciprocation for me to feel love. Working through that and I mean, like, it's been about a 3-year friendship, just because of giving. And to be honest, and this is a testament to all that we've talked about tonight, giving without the expectation, even though there were feelings there, but just investing and giving has yielded a trusting relationship, a strong relationship. I laugh because your wife's comment of you're around him, but you're not with him. So powerful, because the depth of connection that I have and the types of conversations that I have, because just like you're saying, it's coming from a place of patience and just listening. Like, I don't need you to give me. I'm just going to sit here and just receive, because I didn't give to receive. I got the fruit for this weekend. This weekend was, I will always treat you as a temple, and I always saw you that way. So I didn't want to give you something that you weren't worth, that wasn't worthy of you.
Yeah.
rushing through to get the response I wanted by holding on and saying, you should be doing, you should be doing, you should be doing, wouldn't have yielded that statement. I would have got, and he shared it with me. He was like, if you wanted me to just, be present so you can feel like you were cared about, then you weren't going to get all of me, because I was just going to give you what you thought you wanted.
Yeah.
But by allowing me the patience to grow into this place, I'm giving you a whole person that is committed and wants to be in this relationship, because you let me have the time to grow and give you what you needed, not give you what you wanted. And I was like, you gotta shut me down. I'm done. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, certainly.
But,
Well, certainly.
but to your point, all of this is part of the planting this. You can't, my past relationships didn't yield that level of commitment and connection because I was too busy trying to define what I wanted.
Yeah.
Or define, and I mean that to say, I need you to call me at 7 p.m. every day. Or I need you to take me out to dinner to show that you love me. Or I need you, like, dictating all of that wasn't giving unconditionally.
Yeah.
It was giving with the expectation that you're going to fulfill these requirements. And then I'll know that you love me. This journey has taken me to, I love myself enough to keep working on myself to have a good, happy, solid life, and give you the time and energy that I can when I can, because I care about you, and keep it moving. Yeah. That ultimately led to what I really wanted. But I could not have picked the date that the fruit would have came on the tree.
Well, certainly.
I could not have, I could pick the season, because that, because you can see it coming, but I could not tell you the date it was going to bloom.
I can't stress enough that your situation is a reflection of you. And if you're upset with your situation, I hate to say this, but you're upset with you. Which is why I always end up getting, like, it's the hardest, because we're always looking outwardly. So we think it's the other person that's a problem, but they're only responding to what you are putting out.
I feel so whole and healed right now because I took the time to work on me. Like, I was like, let me keep
that's the process. Working on you will yield you a different environment. And we always think it's the other person, which is why we never change our environment, because we're trying to get the other thing or outside of ourselves to fix us. But all they are is a reflection of how we see ourselves. From that single person that can't get a man or can't get a woman, like, you are getting a reflection of how you see yourself. And it's so unfortunate. Abuse, self-esteem, all that stuff is how you see yourself. And it's causing that type of environment or situation to come into your life. And it's not until you fall in love with yourself or work on yourself to where that is unacceptable that you will reject that and you will move into a different type of situation.
100%. And to your point, moving into a situation that you're wanted and not needed, like not holding on and setting and dictating the threshold for what determines love. Like, like I described, has opened it up to, well, of course you're not going to treat me crazy. I treat myself fine. Like, I don't need you to treat me nice. You're going to add to me or move on. Like, I'm going to be fine. So it's the first time I can say that I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh, this person actually adds to me, and I'm not dependent on them because I'm good alone.
Exactly.
Because I'm whole alone. Like, so it's a pleasant add-on, not a desired training wheel. Like, it's not this other half that I'm just leaning on. Like, it's not that at all.
And it's funny because now when you speak, I remember you all used to laugh at me, even you, when I would get.
I laughed.
I would get so adamant about someone calling my wife my other half, but now you can see and appreciate why that bothers me so much. It's like, no, I need you to understand, because when you get this, that means you got it, and that will liberate you. So just a good concept or thought process of, like, even indirectly, because of like we just had this discussion about wanting to feel needed versus wanted. That happens all the time for that single parent person. that, or even that spouse that is so upset that when they get home, they got a whole bunch of stuff that they got to do because the kids are not going to do it, or my spouse is not going to do it. So it's got to be done. This is the conversations that I hear or what have you. This is what I do when I'm transitioning from me doing stuff to helping someone else do it. And I'm about to walk out what that process looks like and why it's, for one, it's necessary. And even if you have to shift, for example, that parent that feels like they want to be needed, so they're still washing their baby at night. The baby might be 5 or 6. They can wash themselves. That baby that you gotta iron their clothes. You gotta do it. Now, me, I iron everybody's clothes, but they know how to iron. I just, for some reason, I'm weird, and ironing is therapeutic. Yeah, exactly. Ironing is therapeutic for me. But I'm saying that to say there's so many people that claim they have so much to do or they don't have any time, but it's because they want to feel needed, so they're doing everything: cooking, cleaning, washing the kids, or what have you. So this, especially for that person that, like, if their child, well, he can't clean himself, well, it's because you keep on cleaning him. So, and I do understand you put it in a predicament where, well, I don't have time in the morning. Okay, well, wash him at night. You wash him, and then you make him wash himself, so his mechanical skills or her mechanic skills will increase and get stronger to where she can do it herself at night. So you do it, then he or she does it, then you know that they know how to do it, and then they can move to the morning time. So I'm going to go through the process of you relieving yourself of all the things that you claim you have to do, which is, again, your way of needing to feel needed, as opposed to empowering someone so that you can feel wanted because of how much you've blessed them with the ability to do for themselves. So this is how this looks. First, it's I do, you watch, I teach. I'm going to say that again. I do, you watch, I teach. So this is that person that I got to cook everything. Well, you could teach him or her some recipes. So I do, you watch, I teach. Second part of the journey is I do, you help, I teach. Okay, so we move from I do, you watch, I teach. So now I'm doing it. I'm explaining what it is that I'm doing. You're watching and I'm teaching. Then now is, okay, you put your hands in this. I do, you help, I teach. Then we move from that to you do, I help, I teach. So now I'm giving you all the power. See how you're inspecting what you expect. You're letting them do it. You're helping, and you teach while you're helping. You're instructing them. Okay, so now do this. Now do that while you're helping them. All right. Then it transitions from you do, you teach, I shut up and I help. So now it's showing that you're grasping the concept to where you can teach it, because if they can't teach you, they can't do it. If you can't teach you, you don't really understand how you're doing it. So it's forcing you to actually learn what it is that you're doing. So, which is how we got to no love in the first place. I had to really analyze everything that I'm doing. I had to troubleshoot myself, troubleshoot the relationship. So then lastly, you do, I watch, you teach. So now you have succeeded because you all have literally switched roles. Because at the beginning was I do, you watch, I teach. So now it ends with you do, I watch, you teach. So now we have shift roles. That helps with teaching your children and stuff. But if you don't have time, do it at time spans where it's easier. So if you don't have time in the morning, because that's typically what happens. Oh, I don't have time for this. Give me your shoes. Let me do the shoes because I know you can't tie your shoes. So now you've prevented them from learning how to do something because you are trying to meet this time constraint. So change the time frame, move it to the end of the day so that you don't have to worry about that time. You give them the necessary time for them to grow in that place so that they can learn themselves, or do it on the weekend or what have you. But give them the ability to transition from you to them so they can be empowered to be you so that you can rest from all the things that you feel needed to do. And that pretty much concludes our session today. Any last statements, Michelle?
I have been taught. So now I will go and teach.
That's awesome. I mean, the title speaks for itself. You don't like your harvest, change your seed. But please understand that you are the seed. So
And
you
it
have to.
can be done. I am a testament. It
Most certainly.
can be done.
Now be mindful. Be mindful that everything from a harvest standpoint, whether it be a tree or whatever, is inside of the seed. I know so many people that are looking for answers outside of them. If you are the seed, all of your answers are inside of you. You have to work on you so that you can become the proper seed to yield the proper harvest.
You bring you to every situation every time.
Exactly.
You are the common denominator.
Most certainly. Most certainly. So
Whew.
yeah, I felt like we birthed something. Like we just
I got out the other side. I broke ground. I got some stuff. I got some fruits. Thanks.
as usual, I love you all dearly. I appreciate your minds and time. I will continue to study and put my stuff up or things that I'm about to teach up against truth, which I feel is the Bible, before I bring it to you all so that I'm not playing with you all's lives, because this can change lives. Love can conquer anything. I can assure you that. Um, I'm in love with this platform. I'm in love with those who listen. I'm in love with love, and I'm hoping that I can infect you all with it so that you all can also reap the benefits of being in love and living out love. Until we meet again, y'all be safe, take care, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.